Hello and welcome to Inside Science on Radio 4. I'm sorry about that. I've been told that's who I sound like, but no, it's me. It's your old pal Andrew Whitehouse, and we're looking at Pathological Demand Avoidance PDA course, Module 3 of 4. Before we go on, just like to set you a little task. You might notice, so if I stand up, so I've got a pair of jeans on. This is because when we came down to editing Module 2, it seemed that, like a lot of people on lockdown at the moment, my secret was out and my Grinch pyjamas were showing in several of the slides. So forgive me, but you have an extra directed task. See if you can spot the Grinch pyjamas or pyjama bottoms in Module 2, and that'll give you an excuse to watch this wonderful course again and get involved. So, on goes the timer. And let's talk about PDA. No, in fact, no. Let's talk about me first. If you want to get in touch with me, if you want to talk to me, if you want to make friends with me, the place to do it is on Facebook, Andrew Whitehouse at People First Education, or you can talk to me at Twitter, Andrew WSEN, at Instagram, Andrew WSEN, at LinkedIn, Andrew Whitehouse. I'm the Andrew Whitehouse with a load of letters after my name. And you can even email me, old school, Andrew at peoplefirsteducation.com, and at peoplefirsteducation.com there's my website, which has got an online booking form, contact form. You can talk to me on there. I'm a TEDx speaker. Another easy way of identifying me on LinkedIn is I've got a still, a bit like this one, from my TEDx, From Disability to Superpowers. You can find that on YouTube or on TED.com. Always seems a little bit easier to find it on TED.com. Also, I'm a Bamford lecturer for the British Academy of Audiology, a TEDx, I've done all that, hearing ambassador, forensic special needs consultant. That means I give special needs and disability expert witness work to the courts, unbiased witness work, SEN short course provider at Bishop Grosseteste University and the University of Lincoln. So we've got those two both nailed. So let's move along a little bit more. The modules, these 4 modules of PDA, of which this is number 3, I strongly recommend, rather than picking out the ones you like the look of, watching them 1, 2, 3, 4. At the beginning of each one, I'm doing a little bit more on what is pathological demand avoidance syndrome. So on all my courses, what I do is I start off with a what is, but in actual fact, on the PDA ones, I'm putting that what is at the beginning of all of them, in looking at it from a different angle, so you get a real feel. It's very complicated. Pathological demand avoidance syndrome was identified by Elizabeth Newson in 2003, so it's pretty new on our radar. Dustin Hoffman hasn't made a film about it yet or anything like that, so this is a new one to us. And we're still learning, so the more you can find out about it, and it is very much about the impairments guiding the practice with PDA. So we're going to do what is PDA. We're also going to look at what is autism. We've been doing that. I'm going to drag a little bit more of that into this workshop. Who is affected by PDA? What sort of people get PDA? The child as the learner, the features of PDA, where PDA meets autism and ADHD. Even more of that today. Looking at control and how important it is to PDA, how to help and how to make a plan. Now that little run through actually runs through every single one of the modules. So you're gonna, again, I really strongly recommend you watch them beginning to end. 1, 2, 3, 4. Take about 5 hours, and with all the added directed tasks. So my videos are about an hour long each, and then we've got lots of little tasks that you need to do and pausing and stuff like that. So, useful ways of concealing demands. Here's some language. We finished with some sentences on the last one, and I had 3 slides of sentences giving you some ideas about how to couch demands nice and simply for people with PDA. So I thought I'd give you a few more that you could sort of put in your portfolio. These are slides which you can study and learn almost. If you remembered what are on those slides, you'll probably have a lot more success with your young people with PDA. So would you do this for me? Would you? That's quite a nice one. It's slightly softer than will you, and it's much softer than do this, do that. Would you? Could you? If you're happy to, that's a great one. One I heard yesterday. You're really good at this. I think you're going to be. This was on a Zoom, and somebody was trying to convince someone else to do a job for them. And you're really good at this. This will be no problem to you. I know that you're excellent at this. You're better than me, in fact, and that sort of stuff. Yeah, really good. Really enjoyed that. When you've finished, could you? Do you mind doing? If it's okay with you, is it okay with you? You're putting the control into the other person, and with PDA, that really is the way forward. That's what we want to do. Give them the control, the safest and sensible way to do things. A few more you might like here. I've called this slide continued. How do you feel about? I wish I knew someone who could help me with this. That's a fishing one, isn't it? Look at that. Now it's time to moving it on. You choose what job shall we do next? I bet you can't do that in 5 minutes. A little bit of a challenge. When I was a young teacher, during the war, Rodney, when I was a young teacher, I had a mentor called Terence. And Terence, if you're out there watching this, a few things that you said to me really stuck in my mind. And this is one of them. He said all this stuff about working with children and telling them they're great and they're fabulous. He said, it's really good. He said, but there are some children, he said, that you really just want to set them a challenge. I bet you can't. I bet you can't. And I took that on board. And actually, to be fair with him, that worked with an awful lot of children. You've got to be particular which children you choose to do that with, but it did work with a good few. Don't you clear that up? I'll do that. Oh no, let me. They may not always work, but they're just a few ideas. This task or this one? Do you want lunch at 12 or 1? How long will it take in the morning to eat breakfast? That's a polite way of saying we're in a hurry to get out. So some really, really nice ones on there. And again, I do really strongly recommend that you use them. Now, we've got a bit of a diagram on there. Is that a Venn diagram, I think? Something like that. No, not quite. I'm not a mathematician, as you'll see if you watch my dyscalculia course. It's a good thing not being a mathematician for dyscalculia. So we've got aware, unaware, emotional and logical. And in the center, we're trying to meet I love it. And what we're looking for is where the language meets my needs and works. And so that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to meet the needs of the language. How emotional, how logical, how aware, how unaware. Those 4 things, if you can put those into your language, into your sentences, then you'll do very, very well with people with pathological demand avoidance syndrome. Getting the language right. There's that lovely bit in the film Labyrinth when Sarah, the princess, is she's trying to get the goblins to take the baby away, and she says, I wish the goblins would come and take this baby. And the goblins are under the bed and they're going, that's not it, that's not right. Say your right words. Say your right words. In all forms of autism, say your right words is a really crucial skill. So say your right words. If it's in Labyrinth, it's got to be right. Some of the core features of PDA are need to resist normal everyday demands. I've told you this, but what I'm now saying is these demands are made by other people. They're made by other people. They can be self-motivated. And that's why some of those sentences are quite good, because they're self-motivating. But it's things that other people demand of them. And the resistance is to manage acute anxiety. So they're going, these demands give me great anxiety. If I resist, I don't have that anxiety. Unlike classic autism, learners with PDA may use social skills to manipulate. So we don't have that skill very often in classic autism, or indeed in Asperger. But in PDA, they can manipulate using their social skills. Oh, you don't want to do that to me. You know I've got a bad leg, and it's really very not classic autism. Now we're looking at anxiety, and we've got things in there like worry, nervousness, you know, all those sorts of things. They really capture it, and we don't want people who feel anxious or nervous. So the whole point is to take these things out of the equation. So young people with PDA have a passive early history in the first year. Now, we've called it actively passive. Now, so these are the ones, they sit on the sidelines, they just watch what's going on, and the active passive comes in where they'll take something. So I'm going to get fun with sounds. Just drop it and look just to see what happens. So actively passive, other than unlike lots of other children. So letting things drop to the floor from their hands. We want to look from strong objections to normal requests. So these are normal, everyday things like brush your teeth, wear clean socks. They're just normal things. But these hugely strong objections to these normal requests. Again, PDA is unlike people with classic autism who lack the social response and empathy and tend to have poor body language and stereotypical behaviour. The PDA person just continues to resist the ordinary demands of life. Young people with PDA resist ordinary demands, and as they get more gifted with language and more involved with language, this can get worse for them. They may acknowledge the demand, but they come up with some very in-depth and quite convoluted excuses as to why they cannot comply. My legs don't work, I need the toilet, my homework is here, mummy said she wanted me over there, I'm waiting for a phone call. It can go on and on and on. It's not just like, no, I won't do that. In autism, it is very much, I'm not doing that, and then maybe followed by a meltdown. See the workshop on meltdowns. Okay? But in PDA, it's very, very different. They may hide under furniture and say that they're stuck. They use fantasy withdrawal. One of the ones I've seen is a child who didn't want to empty the dishwasher, and I said I'd read something. You see this in Module 1, and I'd read something to say children age 4 should be able to empty dishwashers, and she said, I can't do it, I'm a pig. Pigs don't do dishwashers. Yes, she was actually dressed as a pig at the time. And if you look at the screen, this is the actual pig herself, riding a pig and using the pig as an excuse not to empty the dishwasher. So pretending to be a pig, you could not predict some of this stuff. And so expect the unexpected is what I would say. This is unlike young people with autism who may be reluctant to follow a demand. They will ignore, shut down, shut out, and in a non-social way with few direct strategies for avoidance. There's no manipulation there. There's no convoluted avoidance strategies. There's no pretending they're stuck under the furniture or broken their leg or they're a pig. It's just clear, plain and simple, no. And then if you are really unfortunate, or they are really unfortunate, this could then transcend that and become a meltdown. And so absolute no, head in the sand, not doing it. There isn't anything, no, it's not as complex in autism as it is with PDA. Okay, so my clicker's not working. So I'm going to just try something else. Talk amongst yourselves for a moment. Can you believe this stuff? Okay. Okay, in autism, sorry about that. In autism, praise, reward and sanctions are usually ineffective, or they can be ineffective unless they're extremely linked to special interests. But if they don't want to do something, they just don't want to do it. Young people with autism are not inclined to use manipulation because they don't have the social empathy to understand how to do the manipulation. And so, whereas in PDA, these are very different. If you can get a reward, and make it irresistible, then that will work with a person with PDA. But it might only work once or twice when they get a handle on how you're dealing with it, and then you have to find something else. In autism, they don't have that social empathy to understand how to manipulate people. In PDA, they do. PDA children can switch from passive to aggressive very, very quickly. And also, one of the things that they might do is you can't tell the difference between passive and aggressive. And I'm talking extreme passive aggressive. For example, they've got a really loving face. They may be stroking you, going, I hate you, you know, all this sort of thing, you know, or vice versa. They may be kicking you in the shins and telling you that they love you. And then they'll apologize, but they might do the same thing again pretty much straight away. Children with autism are impulsive and prefer to work to their own routines, whereas PDA, it is very much a manipulative thing. Although we do, as I've said before, we do have that impulsive behaviour showing up in other areas of life. Wanted to spend a bit of time looking at obsessions. If you remind yourself of the 4 areas of diversity, we've got sensory in the middle, we've got social and emotional, we've got communication, and down at the bottom there, we've got that lack of flexible thought, or what I call rigid thinking, which is the old name for it, but a lot easier to understand. Obsessive behaviour. People with PDA have obsessions, but they tend to be social in nature. They can be overpowering in their liking for certain people. Most behaviour is obsessive, especially the demand avoidance, and can tend to lead to low levels of achievement. Young people with autism have obsessions which are rarely social and are not focused on demand avoidance. Their obsessions are not used for manipulative purposes. So, okay, so we're looking more at an obsession with people. And I do see in schools children, particularly younger children, who develop very unhealthy obsessions with other children, and they may well hurt those other children. They may well never give those children a break away from them. They're following them around all the time, and it is very disturbing to watch, and absolutely extremely difficult to get them away from those people obsessions. And the last one that I had as a case study, or a casework that I was working on, was a boy who he had a diagnosis of autism. He was clearly PDA. Remember what we said, may have. So we were putting the interventions for PDA in place for him. But with him, he had an obsession with a girl, also had quite severe special needs, and he wouldn't leave her alone. And what we were trying to do was make it as unpalatable for him as we possibly could to be with her. So if she sat down, we would have 2 adults sit either side of her to sort of help her away, because she really didn't enjoy this attention. She really wanted this boy to back off away from her. In autism, these obsessions tend not to be with people. They're more likely to be with things or actions. They're more likely to be about Lego or lining things up. They're that sort of thing. It's a very, very different scenario in autism, but it's still there. And if you go to those 4 areas of diversity, what I'm saying to you is, it's all in there. You've just got to unpick it and decipher it. Okay. Young people with PDA are less likely to have caused anxiety to their parents before 18 months of age. Young people with PDA are less likely to show stereotypical motor mannerisms. They don't move around in quite the same way. They're less likely to show echolalia or pronoun reversal. They're less likely to have slow speech abnormalities in terms of pragmatics. They're less likely to have slow tiptoe walking. They're less likely to have slow compulsive adherence to routines. This is more classic autism. PDA is different, and they don't have this list of things in quite the same way. They may have it, but not as much as young people with autism. They're more likely to, and here we go, resist demands obsessively. Be socially manipulative by the age of 5. They are more likely to show normal eye contact. So that's one that we often look for. Might not be there in PDA. They're more likely to show excessive lability of mood and impulsivity. And again, you could mark that off as behavior. You could mark that off as ADHD. They're more likely to show social mimicry, including gesture. They'll copy you, copy people, copy the TV. They're more likely to show role play, more extended and complete than mimicry. Role play is real big one for PDA, and you can use role play a lot to help people with PDA. And they're more likely to show other types of symbolic play. Okay, and this now where I've got this from is this particular source. I think it's the PDA Society. It says they're more likely to be female. I would say current figures are now saying that actually in autism and PDA that we're showing equal numbers of male and female. So although we do accept the fact that quite often in classic autism it's harder to identify girls with autism. Okay, social and emotional understanding. Let's have a bit of a look at this one. Excuse me. Okay, just looking at my timer there because I've got to get these things right for you. So social and emotional understanding. And okay, we want to look at conflict reduction and resolution. We need to create an environment that reduces conflict. So rules and routines, they can avoid a lot of conflicts, and they set expectations for children. Now, while we're in there, let's talk about visual timetables again, because as you know, I love to talk about visual timetables. If you think I'm being boring with this, if you think I'm being over the top with this, and you don't have a visual timetable, put one up and see what a massive impact it has on your behaviour management in the classroom. But you know, it's a really great way of showing rules and routines in the classroom is a visual timetable. What we expect at what time, and it puts children who need control. Here we have some control into their more comfortable place. Have time to calm down. Children need to learn to resolve some conflicts on their own. So letting them go to a special place. You might have a timeout zone. You might have, you know, we've discussed all sorts of things. Tables with cloths on them, tents, large, well-lit cupboards that they can't get stuck in or locked in or anything like that. Areas outside the classroom, cubby holes here and there. Any of these pre-negotiated, both on a safety point of view and a manageability point of view, will be absolutely brilliant. Letting people step away from the situation. Let's face it, stepping away is what works for everybody, really, isn't it? So, taking a time out, taking a break from the situation allows children to gather their thoughts before speaking or acting. Children and adults. Taking a time out to think about a response. Yeah, I'll give you till tomorrow to decide on this. That's a business thing, isn't it? But, you know, that's what we want. Time out can be as short as counting to 10 or saying the alphabet, removing themselves from the area for a few minutes. Those are all the sorts of things that I would be strongly recommending. So time out. What you're doing really is you're teaching children to remove themselves from the situation and discuss things when both parties are calm. You're teaching children to take a break, to gather their thoughts and emotions. It's the initial step in responding appropriately to difficult situations. Long term, you're teaching the child the difference between respond and react. And as you will have seen on the ADHD course, a respond and react is a real good skill that we can put into all sorts of things like role play and scenario setting and comic strip conversations, but also getting them to just go away and think about something. So if you've got a timeout area, have you got one in your school? Have you got one in your class? Have you got one in your environment? If you've not got one, where could you put one? If you have got one, have you got a brilliant idea that we can put online and blab all over the internet? Let me know. Please do. So what does the word autism mean? What does the word autism mean? It actually means the self, all about me. And so this is again important because PDA is a form of autism, and we have the theory of mind, which is developed around the concept of the self. And so I saw a lovely picture the other day. I was looking at theory of mind work. If we have obsessions, by the way, my obsession is this stuff. So I was looking at some theory of mind work, and somebody put this illustration, and there's a man on the phone to a girl child, and he said, "Hello, what are you doing?" She said, "Playing with this," because he doesn't know what she's playing with, because theory of mind says she just assumes everyone knows what she knows. Theory of mind starts with that: if I cover my eyes, I can't see you, therefore you can't see me. In autism, this develops in not quite as not quite an effective way. So things you've got to do when we're using theory of mind is using I in conversations. Teach children to use I. They don't know if I kick Michael, Michael feels pain. And so teaching children to use phrases that help other children understand their point of view rather than blaming the other person. Often children don't realise why another child is upset or what they could do to make the situation better. So you can use sentences. I feel this, I feel that, we, I, me, mine, all those things, and they will help quite considerably. So remember, in autism, it's all about me. If you want them to know about you, you've got to tell them. This is not implicit, and you have to be explicit about these things. So again, all about the I, me, mine, and we. You need to tell them that stuff. All right. So here's a few to help you. I was sad when you pushed me. You need to also explain the concept of sad in there. But, you know, again, nobody said this was going to be easy, but I was sad when you pushed me. I fell into the wall, and now I have a bump. These phrases explain what happened and why it was upsetting. It's better than saying something like, you hurt me. You hurt me is as useless as be calm, calm down, behave well, all those things that we have talked about a lot. They don't really mean anything. You have to be completely explicit. Remember, you are dealing with a form of autism, and where we are now, what you're doing is you're combining the rigid thinking and the communication, okay, and actually the social emotional understanding. So when children use I, they talk about how they feel, which is hard for anyone else to say that's not true. They can't dispute that. You need to take a little bit of time to problem solve. So if children have a difficult conflict to resolve, give them examples of solutions or help them think of alternatives. So here we go. We've got two children. They're arguing about who's going to use the water fountain. Suggest letting one of them go first, and the other one will be the line leader or go first next time for the water fountain. So you've got a negotiation situation here. All right. And so, yeah, basically you can mediate for them. You can give them ideas. All right. And so that's the kind of thing we want to be thinking about with PDA. And that also allows those children to feel that sense of control that they need so greatly. All right. We're looking at development, and obviously children with PDA develop just like anyone else develops, but they may develop differently, and they may develop at different levels. But what we do need to understand is that younger children and older children with PDA will have different levels of understanding. So a young child might need examples of alternatives. An older child may be able to create their own alternatives. Okay, and a compromise involves give and take. Learning to find creative alternatives let's satisfy both people. So let's talk about that, because we've got a situation here. Just check something. Thank you. We've got a situation here whereby I've contradicted myself quite heavily here. I have said let that child be in control if it's safe and sensible to do so. I've also said let that child think they're in control. Well, when we start looking at compromise, is that control? That's the big question. What do you think? Is it control, or am I trying to control them? Well, actually, it's a bit of both. And I think what we're doing is we're trying to allow them to control the options for change. So it is going to be quite tricky stuff. But again, you know, we do have to progress these children. One of the sayings I like a lot was from Ros Blackburn's mum. And Ros Blackburn's an autistic adult. I've talked about, if you don't know who she is, look at Module 1 of the autism workshops. And I talk about Ros's mum, and Ros Blackburn is an autistic adult, and her mum used to take her out and they used to talk about autism. They give talks at universities and youth clubs and all the rest of it. And Ros's mum said, there's no such thing as can't. It's cannot. And the not stands for not yet. And I would tend to agree with that. So, you know, we have to move these children on a little bit to be able to relinquish a little bit of control. But to do that, we have to make them feel comfort, take away the anxiety, and be in a position to be able to relinquish some of this control. So putting things in writing, making a list of possible solutions, making a rota of jobs, outlining rules for the game, and we can make this fun. You can make this fun. You can link it to special interests and things like that. And as we said at the end of Module 2, one of the things that you need to get through to them is just because something is written down doesn't mean it's an unreasonable demand. And so what we're actually doing is seeing expectations on paper and consolidating how to approach different situations. That there are different ways of doing different things. Because the other thing, again, and we're back into their autism side of their PDA, is they are autistic first and they cannot generalize about situations. That is part of the rigid thinking. So timetable, again, can reduce, you know, disputes and many roles and routines. And actually one of the things that what I'm trying to say is timetable, dispute. Yes, that I say a lot on courses. It came to me in the end. One of those things I say on courses is if you have a visual, something written down, you can refer back to it. If you've got an auditory request, response, statement, whatever you want to call it, then it is open to people's memories what was said. When it's written down, it sits lovely into routine, and it sits lovely into reliability. And you can prove things. There is nothing people with PDA love more than proving things. So, here we go. I talked about visuals again. That's my little obsession, as you well know. So what I want to do now is I want you to tell me 10 things that you can make visual in your classroom. Now, before you do these 10 things, I don't want 10 things you've already got. And if you're the best environment that there is, you can always be better. One of my favourite schools I go to is an infant school, and they book me in on regular visits. And one of the things that they do with me, one of the things that happens when I'm there, I was actually there in the place thinking and forgot how to speak. Single attention, get some of that. One of the things that I do when I get there is I say, look, your school is perfect. Why do you want me here? Why do you need me here? And they said, because if we let it go and we rest on our laurels, we won't be. And so we're looking to improve all the time. So even the best classrooms, I still want 10. So pause the video and come up with 10 things you can make visual in your classroom. Okay, sorry about that. Well, welcome back. Okay, 10 things you can make visual in your classroom. Number 1, let's have it. A visual timetable, of course. If you've not got one, let's have one. Nice vertical visual timetable. Everyone can see, big enough to be seen from the whole room. I always take off my glasses, stand as far away as I possibly can from the visual timetable, and therefore, if I can see it like that, it's a good one. So we've got visual timetables. Instructions that can be how many people are allowed to use a certain piece of equipment, how many people should be sitting around a certain table, instructions of lists of who's doing what in what order. We could also have visuals of whose job is it to do what, rotas for jobs, responsibility, who's feeding the hamster, who's washing the paintbrushes, who's fetching the stapling, all those kinds of things. I want your keywords, your sight words, your high frequency words, or your words for your current project. And we looked in dyslexia at the tutors, so all that sort of thing. Want all that stuff up there. 10 things, nice and easy. Send it to me, and I will respond to you. PDA in the school. Novelty is king. So novelty is king. So we want to exploit strengths, role play, enter the child's world. Be prepared to play along. Get involved. Role play. Hashtag get involved. Give time to process. Use your visual prompts. We know from previous workshops, and if you've not been on them, go on as many as you can. They're all out there for you. We know that visuals are processed so much quicker than auditory verbal communication. Do not invest emotionally in a strategy. You've designed something, you've spent all night, you've made all the resources, you've done, and they go, no, not interested. And that's it, game over. Please insert another coin. Understand, and this is a really important line, and this is one that sticks in my mind. And I actually took this out of the PDA training for a while, and I'm seeing it back, and I'm going, I don't know why, because it's really important. This is a capacity, not a will issue. This is something they are able or not able to do, not something willing or unwilling to do. So understand this is a capacity, not a will issue. Keep that one in your portfolio. So social emotional understanding continued, implications for managing and teaching children with PDA. So some of the things you need to know: social interaction is flawed by the inability to see the bigger picture. Here's when we want to stop. Okay, so stop right there and think about this, because I have seen this, and I've seen it a lot, and it's worth knowing. You know about the custard pie fight in module 1. We don't want it. So you say to child, put those books on the shelf. They say, no, I'm not doing it. You always make me put the books on the shelf. You answer, no, I don't. Sarah did it yesterday. Yasmin did it the day before. And actually, Ahmed's doing it tomorrow. And yes, it is. And you're lying. And that's not true, because I did it yesterday. And all of a sudden, it's all got manipulative, and it's all got custard pie. And everyone's, you're getting this back and forth. And you're going, I'm certain I said that. Why? And you start doubting your own sanity. And I'll tell you this. At that first point, when you say, put those books on the shelf, please, or whatever it is you've said, perhaps use one of those lovely sentences we gave you at the beginning, and they say no, walk away. And I'll bet you there's a good 50% chance, maybe even more, they'll do it. Because what they've done, they've had a few moments to process the bigger picture, and they'll go, well, hang on, why don't I? Just try it. You will be astounded. Lack of boundaries, desire to be in control of the situation. You can help with that. Understand rules but don't feel they apply to them. Excessive mood swings, and sometimes even switching suddenly. So that's a few of the implications. We're going back to role play again. Model and practice responses to different situations with role play. Actually do what I just did. That back and forth thing? Do that with them and see how they feel about it. Use examples of things that have happened or are about to happen, or and then what you could do with that, you can we did social stories in autism communication module 2, and if you look at that, how we do this sometimes, other people, I will, this is, you could actually role play that, you can act that out, and I've seen it done, and I would really strongly recommend that one as well. Practice in different situations when the learner with PDA is calm provides the opportunity to discuss options and consequences. Something you really need to know, a person with PDA is not constantly and always refusing to do things. They don't wake up refusing everything from morning, noon and night. It goes through phases, and your best option is to communicate with that person when they are not having those difficulties, when they are not refusing, when they're not being pathologically demanding, okay, or demand avoiding. And so that's the time to speak to them, not when we're on high alert, as I call it. Demonstrate words or actions that are good responses to the situation. So you could try some role play around being someone pushing in, being called a name, being bumped into, being the butt of a joke, somebody stealing a toy, any of those things. You can do all that. It's a really lovely way of getting them to learn empathy and learn get a feeling of the bigger picture. Okay. Right, I would like to now talk a little bit about rewards. When I was in school, I used to be quite difficult to reward. I was quite oppositional when it came to rewards. This is because I used to think about it, and particularly in secondary school. I was in secondary school in a particularly funny time because it was punk rock was the big thing when I was in school. So I was an anarchist. I didn't know what an anarchist was, but I knew I'd got it written on a badge, so I must have been one. So I was an anarchist, and the teachers used to say, "Well done, Andrew, house point," and I'd say, "I don't want it." They'd say, "What do you mean you don't want it?" They didn't know what to do with this, so I don't want it. It means nothing. Keep it. You have it. Give it to someone who wants it. And of course, what they didn't really see was the fact that that actually not everyone responds to the same rewards. So what they should have done is they should have looked for something that I wanted. I didn't want a house point. You know why I didn't want a house point? It's virtual. It's nothing. I have no benefit. I don't go home any more wealthy for it or anything like that. So I didn't want it. So what we want to do is we want to have an examination of effective rewards and sanctions and guidance on how to meet the needs, interests and aspirations of individuals and groups. And yes, I have purposely worded that to be in line with Ofsted. Okay, so house point, keep it, don't want it. Now, the other thing we need to think about when we're looking at rewards and sanctions, what do you think? What works best? When I'm on the physical courses, I say, what do you think? What works best, sanctions or rewards? Yeah, I'm asking you. I think most of you would say rewards work best. Yeah? What do I see most of? Sanctions. Incredible, isn't it? We have the answer. You don't even need the training. To be fair, those who choose to access this are usually the people that already know this stuff. But you've got your answer. We have a room full of sanctions, and you know, how do you feel if someone's negative with you? I know how I feel. If someone's negative with me, I'm reluctant to help them. I'm reluctant to do anything with them. How do you feel if someone's positive with you? If you're anything like me, I'm so easily manipulated. I'll do anything for you. People ring me up and go, "Oh, you were so good last time you came into school. Can you come in again?" I'll clear my diary for you. I'm just letting you know if you want me to come in. Whereas if someone's difficult with me and I have a hard time in a school, you know, I'll go, but I'm less inclined to you know, I feel less good about it. So, you know, it's just human nature, isn't it? It's really just human nature. So rewards always work better. When is a sanction effective, though? If we're looking at sanctions, you do have to follow through with your sanctions. Or do you? One of the things I said was own up immediately after mistakes. Yeah? So actually, if you've got this wrong, yeah, and you've got a sanction in place, apologise, withdraw that sanction. But yeah, if you're in the right, when is a sanction effective? It is effective when it is followed through. Okay. Dojo points. So a colleague of mine, head teacher, I can remember going out for a curry with this head teacher, and she said to me, she said, I'm using dojo points. She said, they're brilliant, the kids love them. Well, anyone who says the kids love them to me, I always respond to this by, how do you know? Bet they don't. I'm a little bit, because what my argument is, it's just like me with the house points as a child. Some kids may love them, some may not. It's really, there is no sanction that all children will respond to. One size does not fit all. So you have to have a portfolio of sanctions. Maybe most of the kids enjoy their dojo points, maybe, but I don't think all of the children enjoy their dojo points. And so what you have to do is you have to have a portfolio. You want something that works. There's no point having stuff there if it doesn't work, is it? So let's have a little look at this. Think differently. So this is about a child, yeah? And this child got themselves into a bit of a scrape. And this is a real case study. I'm trying to keep it as confidential as I can, so shouldn't be too difficult. And this child misbehaved quite severely, and the person who was dealing with the child took their mobile phone off them as a sanction, temporarily, but as a sanction. Child responds by saying, fine, I don't care, don't need it. Words to that effect. Adult responsible then takes their DVD player. That's not a laptop, it's a portable DVD player. This particular child likes to watch historical dramas on DVD. Child says, I don't care, take it, I'll read a book. Adult then, smack in the middle of the custard pie fight, grabs the nearest thing, and they get the makeup bag. Now this child's very, very keen on her makeup, and gets very upset about it. And so what I'm asking you now is, what have we learned? What have we learned? Well, some people would say that's a sanction, you can use that. To be honest with you, that's your reward. You've just found the magic button. You've just found the one thing that makes that child respond. And so what you have to think about is, how many sanctions have they responded to that can be turned around and made into a reward? How can we make that negative a positive? So think about what interesting rewards have worked for you. That could be a really good directed task for you to do that whilst we're not on air. Have a little look into that. If you want to pause now and have a think about it, you can do that now. Grab yourself a cup of coffee. We're getting close to the end anyway, but next sort of 15 minutes. But yeah, what interesting rewards have worked for you? How do you find out? This is shown up on a few of my courses, but I'd love to share it again. This is a shoebox of some of the things that make me happy, and in there we've got there's a patch from a Northern Soul all-nighter. Some of you people my age might remember that. Children's literature, Star Trek, a running medal, some music, teddy bear. There's a juggling ball from Jorvik in there. All those, flyer from Carluccio's. All those wonderful things. Now you've just learned all sorts of things about me that you can use to motivate me. And in actual fact, I did use the actual shoebox. I took it somewhere, and the head teacher of that school contacted me and offered to take me out for a meal in Carluccio's because they wanted to discuss some interventions they wanted to put in place. What's fascinating about that is that rather than pay however much money it was to get me into school, they were taking me for a £30 meal in Carluccio's. Now, a £30 meal in Carluccio's nowhere near covers, 2 days in their school, but I was still easily manipulated because I do like Carluccio's. So you need to make it irresistible, and there I am being irresistible. Just to remind you, you need to make it irresistible, something that they really enjoy, and that way you're going to get the rewards in place, and they're going to respond to those rewards. Just want to look at this lack of flexible thought, rigid thinking, ways to be flexible. This is really from your side of things, trying hard to deal with changes, trying hard to stay calm when things are not just what you expect, letting other people have their way too. Ways to be rigid, getting really upset over any kind of change, getting really stubborn when things are not just what you expect, bossing other people to make them do what you want. So you can put that up, you can workshop that, it's really, really great, and you can even role play it. So other things, sometimes children get upset and actually nothing's really happened. Myself, I don't hear well, so a lot of the time I find myself thinking people are saying things about me and that sort of thing. And children are the same. Children misunderstand jokes, comments, or actions. Teach your child with PDA to review situations and ask themselves these questions. Was that comment or that action directed at me? Could it have been a joke? Is this person usually unkind or critical, or were they just having a bad day? What did their body language say? Were they smiling as if they were joking? Were they looking at someone else? That's an interesting one. Was the person telling me a rule or something to keep me safe? I've come across several situations over the years where teachers have been in trouble for shouting at a child when actually they've been shouting to a child because they're in a dangerous situation. So, you know, it is an interesting question to ask. There's more than one explanation for most things. Think about consolidating some of the things we've looked. So we should always follow through with consequences and sanctions, particularly early in the year, because we're setting the ground rules. Remember what we said, ground rules can be the happy place for people with PDA as long as they're involved in them. Consequences are not real unless they are real. Okay, so you do have to follow through with these things because otherwise you're not being consistent, and you need to be consistent because it will come back and bite you. Inconsistency causes conflict. Consistency will allow him or her to know what to expect. Consistency will allow him or her to get to know you, and consistency will keep him or her in her comfort zone. So you need to be consistent. Rules, expectations should remain constant. The rule is children must clean up before going outside. Consistently reinforce it. The minute you become lax, particularly with people with autism and PDA being on the autism spectrum, that confuses them. You need to stick to your rules and routines. When children get mixed messages, they begin to believe rules are negotiable. That's your rigid thinking, and that's in autism. Avoid this by consistently reinforcing rules. Okay. Early, clear and consistent presentation of rules is important for children because it sets expectations. Prepare children in advance for new experiences such as going to the doctor, attending a play or starting school. Okay, just want to do some stuff about reducing anxiety for people with PDA. The main issue in PDA is anxiety. Anxiety is the major underlying cause for pretty much all behaviours in PDA. If you reduce anxiety, behaviours will reduce in severity. That's a fact. Happy people don't really respond in aggressive or challenging ways. So you need to avoid activities which are known to cause anxiety. Make sure that young people are properly prepared for change. Use of anxiety scales can be useful for the person to start take control of this. And so I've put up, and again, forgive me, you've seen these loads of times on these courses, but believe me, I would not be peddling these out if they weren't a fantastic resource. So incredible 5-point scale, checking in with your emotions, checking in with your anger management and scaling them. Absolutely brilliant. We'll talk about those on Autism Module 1 and 2, and other things similar to them. They're by Mitzi Curtis. Please do investigate the incredible 5-point scale. Reducing anxiety, let the person be part of the solution by saying, we've got a problem which needs to be fixed. We're back to say your right words again. And then the anxiety is confirmed and reflected back. Implied demands, if you knock on a child's bedroom door, they will assume that the next thing that's going to happen is a demand. So if you've got teenagers, and I know knock on a teenager's door, they say, go away, okay, because they don't want to hear what it is you're going to say to them. And so that's, you know, that's quite a tricky one. So, you know, you need to be knock on the door and say, are you okay? Hi, can I come in? That sort of thing. Make it that little bit more softer, a little bit more softer. What am I like? English degree, grammar like that. Other approaches which may be useful are speaking in the third person, requesting rather than demanding, offering a choice of two. Remember I told you 2 is the magic number. Depersonalising a demand, such as the whole family are going to do this, or everyone's going to be doing that, and that will help greatly. And then we've got our directed task. Okay, I want to really we looked a lot at rigid thinking today, and we looked a little bit at special interests. Think of a child with PDA that you teach or you support. How could you use their special interest in an irresistible way? So how could you use their special interest in an irresistible way? Thank you very much for listening. I look forward to seeing you on Module 4. Thank you.